Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. This is our first podcast of 2024, and I have a special guest for you. I'm so honored that he could be here. Hilton, thank you so much. This is Hilton Carter, the man, the legend himself.
You're too kind. Too kind. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
The honor is all mine. Before we go ahead, Hilton, I know a lot of people who are in America know who you are, but just for my other audience members, tell us, who is Hilton? Who are you?
Who am I? Well, I am a plant stylist, interior stylist, artist, author. I have four best-selling books out right now. Have a fifth. Hopefully, it will be best-selling.
Yeah.
Coming out in April. I have. You guys don't have targets, and
Well, we
Australia.
kind of we do have Target, but we don't have Hilton Carter
You
Target
don't have Hilton
stuff.
Carter Target. Well, I do collaborations with certain brands, and Target happens to be one of the ones that I collaborate with. So I have collections with them. I'm
Mm,
just someone who's very passionate about sharing my creativity with others, and a lot of that has to do with plants. So I'm going
yeah,
to go ahead and guess that that is probably the reason why I'm actually on this podcast to talk
that
about
is the reason
my
you're on.
love, passion for greenery, for sure.
Yes, it is. It is all about the green, as you can see. That is what we love here, and we love people like you who are just taking it to a whole other level. But before we go into plants, I just want to know, what is your origin story? What
Ah,
is? I mean, how? I know you've done a lot of things. You're an artist. You're just one of these eclectic kind of guys. Why plants? How did you go from loving that first pothos that you propagated
yeah.
to being this icon in the plant world?
So you're talking about the origin story of how I ended up here today, I'm guessing, right? Like, how do you
Yeah.
know me at this point? I mean, honestly, it was a journey, of course.
Mm,
My passion for plants kind of unfurled at some point in 2011 while walking into a space that was full of plants. And at the time, I was living in Los Angeles, California, and I didn't have enough light to bring
mm,
plants in. I didn't have enough time, I'll also say, to actually start to care for plants. So I promised myself that when that day happened, when I had more light, when I had more, I guess, disposable income as well,
yeah.
I would start the process of bringing plants in. And around 2014, I was living in New Orleans, and I decided to bring plants in because I had these really large windows, kind of like the ones I have behind me.
Yeah.
And I started with a fiddle leaf fig that I named Frank.
Frank.
Frank, yes, a lot of folks know about him. I talked a lot about him in my first book, dedicated a whole chapter to Frank because he was the thing that actually got me excited, that challenged me, that pushed me to actually be
Sure.
better when it comes to care. So
Do you know,
I
I'll
started.
stop you for a second there, because I have a fiddle leaf fig story.
Okay, you
And
want to
her
tell it?
name was, and she's called Molly. She was
Molly.
called Molly. Yeah.
Okay.
She was my very first. When I, like you, decided I was going to do this whole plant thing, I got Molly because we just got a new house and I wanted to style my house,
There
right?
you
And everyone was styling their houses with fiddle leaf figs at the time, weren't they?
go. For sure.
So, anyway, long story short, Molly is now deceased. She's in plant heaven.
Oh, R.I.P. Molly.
I
What
know, I know.
may I ask? What took Molly? Was it neglect or was it just fiddle leaf figs, fiddle leaf figging?
No, no, no. I don't believe in the fiddle leaf fig curse. I believe with good knowledge, you can
Of
make
course.
any plant thrive.
There we
But
go.
I know exactly what took Molly.
Tell me.
Light.
Lack of it or too much
Lack
of it?
of it. Lack
Yeah.
of light is what took Molly. And then because of that lack of light, we got into root rot. We got into, I'm trying to fix things and I'm just trying to, it was gone. And from Molly, I decided, you know what? I am going to go and school myself
There you
and
go.
find out exactly what I need to do to
There you
make
go.
a plant survive and not just hope for the best. So,
There we go. I feel like that's the journey a lot of folks are on. Some will never find that moment that you had where you decided, you know what, instead of continuously killing these plants, I'm gonna do the research first and then bring them
yes,
in. I do think at a certain point, we're talking about my journey. At a certain point, I decided that that would be my goal. My goal
yeah,
would be to supply individuals with the information so that they could learn from me instead of going or following my footsteps in a way where I would struggle with a plant before knowing exactly what I was getting
Hmm.
myself into.
Hmm.
So I guess the backtrack on what you're asking, honestly, it was that knowledge, that time spent with my fiddly fig that encouraged me to bring more plants in.
Yeah.
You know how it goes. You bring one, then all of a sudden you're like, how did I end up with 100 plants? And honestly, I feel like it felt like a gradual thing to me, more organic if we're using
Yeah.
more plant puns. And I was someone who worked in the advertising space for a while and just felt a little stagnant. Felt like it was getting a bit stale for me creatively and wanted to stretch my roots a bit more. I'm gonna stop with all these puns.
Yeah.
I'm gonna calm down with all the puns, but
We love plant pods. We love them.
of course, I wanted to stretch my creativity a bit, and I told my girlfriend at the time that I was gonna have a side hustle in interior design.
Oh
And at
wow.
this moment in time, at that time it was probably 2016. I had a lot of plants in my home, and when I
Yeah.
started to share on Instagram about my space, trying to show people the process or the style of my design in my space to possibly get small jobs to style other people's homes. A lot of individuals picked up on the plants and wanted me to talk more about them, how I care for them, how
Yeah.
I decided on where to put them. And for me, honestly, uh, that was like the icing on the cake for me. Like
Sure.
that's another thing that you can easily get me to talk about how to care for these plants if that's what you're asking. I'm trying to show you
Exactly.
how I designed the space. So more DMs will come, more questions in the comments, and I would just start sharing more and more about that.
Sure.
And a friend of mine was like, "Look, why don't you share more about these plants? It seems like people really want this information." And I just started to lean more towards that, leaning towards the light.
Yeah,
And
of course.
here we are. I'm a full-grown, mature plant myself now when it comes to all of this. So that's the story. You know how So I mean, honestly, like how social media goes. One thing can lead to another. More opportunities. The more you put yourself out
Exactly.
there, the more opportunities that you might have come your way. And I am just very fortunate to have as many opportunities that I've had as I have
Mm,
now, and having the ability to share my care, my love for plants with everyone else.
sure, sure. That is absolutely fantastic. Because like you said, the stuff that comes organically is not hard, I think.
Yeah,
You're just leaning into the things that you love, you're leaning into the things that you're enjoying.
for sure.
And this whole new world just opens up. And one minute you were doing this, the next second you were like, well, I didn't see this coming.
Exactly. I mean, all the time I spent working on other things in life, I feel like for the last 5 years, because it's been the last 5 years that I decided to do this as my full time job. It has yet to feel like work to me. And I told
Mm,
myself before I made that leap, I was like, if it ever starts to feel like work, where I just don't want to be a part of it, then I would leave it to do something else or to chase that
sure.
other thing that makes me happy. And that was
Yeah.
the whole process, to make sure that whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm putting my hands in, getting losing time away from my family for, it would be for something that made me happy.
Happy.
So I think at this point for me, it's always been about making sure that you're putting yourself in a position that the things that you are striving for, if you
Hmm.
really want to continuously do that thing, it has to make you happy.
It
So
does.
working in plants, talking about plants, being in situations like this, always make me feel great. So
Yeah.
I'm in a good
That
spot.
is true. Now, some people may not know this about you, but I know a lot of people do. You're a bit of a disruptor, Hilton.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Hey,
Yes,
what?
you are.
Okay, explain yourself.
Explain myself. Plant Rant series number 15. Put your ice cubes in your tea and not your orchids. You've got a t-shirt.
Yeah, I use ice cubes to water my orchids.
Look, I know we all have our favorite ways to tend to our plants, but there is definitely a better way to water your orchids than to stick ice cubes on top of their roots. Ice cubes? Oh, now that's cold.
I can't see. I'm blind. What does that say?
This says plant rants on it, but yeah, if you're calling me, if you're saying the plant rants are why I'm a disruptor, then Hell yeah! I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what kind. I don't know what kind of language we can have on this podcast, but I will say this: the bad version of myself, who we call Bad Hilton, he likes to express himself in a way where he is sharing a lot of what I believe individuals like us talk about. And
Hmm.
he's
Hmm.
heard a lot about this. He's heard a lot of people say, "Thank you for saying the things that most of us don't say." Um,
I love to hang around with people like you, disruptors. I've got a very lovely disruptor friend. You might know him, Derek, the chocolate botanist. I do a lot of stuff with him where we're sitting down
okay,
debunking plant myths.
there
And
we
one
go.
of our absolute favorites is ice cubes in orchids. That came up long before I even saw yours. And I'm like, oh my God, this was so meant to be. Going into that, I did have something constructive I was getting into
Please, please.
talking about plant disruption and people learning how to take care of plants by listening to the guy in the street or some guy on the internet saying something, people like me, guy on the internet.
Like me.
It's like, exactly. How would you advise people to find the correct information on how to take care of plants?
That's a really great question. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, if you want it's not going to be the absolute truth, I guess,
Mm,
because I mean, who knows where a lot of the information, because so much information is changing. Some of the
yeah,
plant names that we've been so used to are changing
yeah,
daily, right? So I would say a trusted individual, more than likely, you could go to a plant shop. Maybe there's individuals who work in a plant shop that's been around for a really long time, and you can get a good source of information for the, I guess, individuals there. If you know individuals who are actually actual growers, you can get information from them, or visit your local conservatories where people
yeah,
who have worked with with the plants that we all are bringing into our homes can provide you with said information. I am
sure.
someone who is known to promote themselves. I would say any book, any book that I have, you can find that information. Why would I lie to you? No, I mean honestly, at the end of the day, a lot of the times where I'm searching for the right information for a plant that I am new to, more than likely it is a plant that is a part of a genus that I have already brought into my world and have worked with
Hmm,
before. And I will do a lot of the trial and error ish type things to make sure that
sure.
I'm finding my footing when it comes to that type of plant. But if there's something that I'm just so off on or just not for sure if I can possibly care for it properly, I will reach out to many individuals who I know have had that plant in the past. Or
That's
I'll do
right.
what I just said. I'll talk to many people at conservatories, or I will just do as much digging as we all do on the
That's right.
Google. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Definitely on the Google and definitely trying to get more reputable sources, but
Yeah.
also knowing, and this is, I mean, I'm like you. I'm in the plant space. I educate people, right? And I didn't go to horticultural school or anything.
Yeah.
It's all stuff that I'm doing and I'm experiencing. And I'm always sort of caveating my advice with, look, I'm sharing with you what I do and my
There it
experience
is.
with these plants.
Yep. You can only
And
speak on what you have yourself experienced, right? So whenever I'm
exactly.
telling someone, I'm like, look, if you are someone who is deciding to put ice cubes on your orchids, right? Let's talk about that. And it is working for you. Who am I to tell you not to do that, right? While it isn't something that I would suggest or I think is the right way to do it, if it's working for you, you do it.
Exactly.
Um, but when I'm dealing with something, working through something, I am actually trying out different types of soil mediums. I'm trying out different types of water options. I'm trying out different plants and different types of light to see what the best results will be, so then I can share or provide the right information that I believe is right for a particular plant. But my right for, let's say, Molly, when Molly was alive, I was going to share
Yeah.
everything I've learned from my fiddly figs. If I would have shared that information with you, I'm saying, but this is what you need for a Molly, because what I know is they need X, like this type of light, blah blah blah, all these different things. And then I find out that you live in a different hemisphere.
Yeah.
You are doing your summers when I'm doing my winters. right? And now I've thrown you off because you're thinking, well, he said that I needed to do this thing.
Exactly.
I didn't know that your Molly was in a northern facing window, while my Frank is in a southern facing window.
Yeah.
So it's like all these things where I can share a lot of information, but there's a lot that I won't know about your situation to provide you with the best results. Does that make
That's right.
sense?
It absolutely makes sense, which is why one of the things I always tell people is look, at the end of the day, we can all sit here and tell you things, but my environment is different from yours. And ultimately, the best thing you can do is just get on with it. Just
Yeah.
try. Worst case scenario, a plant will die by another one.
That's the worst. That is the worst. That is the worst case scenario. You are absolutely right. But what if that is? What if that is the plant? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if that plant is a and I hate to put this on anyone who has these situations handed down to them. And I say that as their grandmother has passed and they decided to hand them this plant. Like it is now your property.
Yeah.
That relationship that they now have with that plant is going to be deeper.
Very different. Yeah.
Feel be so different. They're going to feel a certain way when that plant begins to suffer, right? So yes, the worst thing could happen is it could die, but depending on the relationship or where that plant came from, there could be some things that you might want to try to.
That is true. That is true. Which is why another thing I always say to people is, listen, first of all, if you can accept that your plant might die or this might happen, then we can move forward. You
Sure.
know. But if you can't accept these things, then we might need to start thinking about other things because
Yeah,
if the plant that your grandma gave you died, that would be tragic.
be very tragic. It'd be very tragic, but you have to say at the same time, and I try to express this a lot. Life is life, right? Everything has its shelf life.
Season. Yes,
And you
that's
in
right.
season. I like season better. Everything has
Yeah.
its season, and you have to be aware of that and be ready and prepared to move on when necessary. But you also have to make yourself ready and prepared to do the work to make sure that what you are receiving, let's say you are receiving a plant from a loved one, that you are ready to do the work to then care for it. A lot of us
That's right.
end up in situations where we are gifted, or I don't know, someone passes on and provides us with the plant that we are only taking in because of the relationship that we have with that person,
Person.
not because we really want that plant. And sometimes we'll end up with that particular plant and we don't have the right light for that plant. And in a situation like that, I would rather, if it was gifted to me or handed down to me, I would rather then hand that plant to an individual who has the right quality of light, but also the understanding of the type of care that that plant needs. Because I know I don't want to sit there every single day and see that plant suffer and then feel bad about it, not just for the
Yeah.
plant's sake, but because of my relationship with the individual
Relationship.
who has moved on. And now I'm like, I am killing their plant. It is better to see it go and live its best life and know.
Thrive somewhere else.
Exactly, all the time. So some people ask that question, they're like, "What?" I've had the question asked, "What do you do when you've lost love for a plant, or you just don't want the plant any longer?" I'm
Gift
like,
it.
"Well, I will give it to someone who can love it, but also make sure that they can provide it with the right sort of care that it's going
Hmm.
to need."
That is a good point. Talking about care for plants, are there some things that you used to do back in the day that you don't do anymore because your practice has evolved?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm learning new things every day that I'm working with plants. Honestly,
Mm,
there are certain ways that I've decided on my care, let's say routine, that now I allow myself to have a bit more freedom when it comes to care versus
mm,
trying to have some sort of schedule, let's say. I don't, I mean, at this point, I'm not someone who makes decisions on a whim and decides a plant should be in my life just based on its popularity or how beautiful the plant is. I kind of think now mainly about what I can squeeze into my space for one, but also what aligns with my time, like what I can
mm,
provide care for, and what type of light I already have available for that
sure.
plant. I know there was a time when I was just like, I love that plant. I'm bringing it in. I'm gonna make it work, right? So I
Yeah.
believe like that's the biggest difference from when I started to now.
I love that answer. I really do, because I think that's the difference between people, for example, who are just starting to get into the plant hobby versus people who've been taking care of plants for a while and have a more, so to speak, curated collection. And you're
Sure.
collecting plants for a reason. You're having a plant come into your space for a reason.
Yeah,
So
totally.
people ask me all the time, what's on your wish list? And I'm like, I'm at a point now where I actually don't have a wish list. Do you have a wish list?
Not at all. I totally agree with you there. There's no need to have. I mean, look, I don't know how many plants you actually have in your home or you care for, but at a certain point,
What?
there's too
You
many plants
count?
to
What's the
decide to
point in
wish.
counting?
Well, you know what? I live with someone who's also counting, right? Like,
I don't count.
there are their counting. Their counting starts with one too many. There's just like you definitely have too many in here, but no, I don't have a wish list at this very moment. There's a lot of plants that I don't have, obviously, but it's all for good reason. I can't spend my time every single day of my life tending to a plant. I have other living things in my life that are
Yeah.
much more important for me to care for. I love where I am right now
Hmm.
with the amount of plants I have, and that care
Sure.
process, and the joy that it brings me. Having a wish list, I can understand if you have a low count, when it comes to plants. But at the point where I am right now, like I wish at some points I had less plants.
So
and
how
I
many
and what
plants
I
do you
do,
have?
well, man, I have definitely over 350 plants that I am caring for. A lot of them are in my studio. A lot of them are in my home. The back and forth of trying to manage them all and tend to them has me at my max, at my cap. I'm right there.
Sure.
And if there's a point where I'm like, you know what, I can't. I would like to. When people ask for plants, sometimes some of the newer plants that will end up in my life based on a certain book that I might be working on, and they ask for a plant, I'm like, hey, here you go. Here's a plant that you can have. But for the most part, I feel like at this moment, I am at the perfect spot when it comes to the amount of plants.
You talked about how there are other more important living things in your life to take care of, and you don't want to be dedicating too much time for plants that,
For sure.
possibly might take it out of you. I want to bring this to your attention. And in your book, and everyone, if you haven't read any of Hilton's books, you must. This is my book, and I'm hoping that one day, Hilton, you'll come to Australia and you
I'm
can
coming.
sign my book. But
I'm
in your
coming.
book,
I will definitely be there.
which was absolutely lovely, by the way, I loved it. You talk about alocasias and how you've got an interesting relationship with them. Tell me a little bit about that.
About my relationship,
Yeah,
uh, a difficult relationship. I will say that. I mean, and that's across the board with a lot of different types of plants as well.
yeah.
But I think for them, and I think many will agree, it's a struggle. I feel like I'm always on the struggle bus with them. Obviously, you're
Mm.
not,
Oh,
but
really?
I feel
No,
like
that's not true.
I'm
Hang
always
on.
struggling.
Oh, hang on. I got it right here.
There we go. Now we're
This.
talking.
And I've got a lot more like this one where that came from.
I get it. I get it. Well, and there it is. That's my
But I've got this
relationship. I mean, that's beautiful, beautiful. But and again, I think I'm more so in that space too, where it's just like some very well tended to, very just look as if they just don't need me. Like that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like someone just doing their thing in spite of who I am, like and what I'm
Exactly.
doing. The others are just like, I don't want to be here.
No,
I,
I don't want to be here. I don't care that you're Hilton Carter. I just,
yep, I
I'm going to
don't
die.
want to be here, and that's it. So yeah.
No, I too have a love-hate relationship with alocasias. And
Mhm.
and anyone who knows my content knows that. And I have lots of successes and lots of fails. I
For
don't know
sure.
what they want, not yet, but
We're
I'll
all
keep
working
trying.
for it. Well, as you should, and I tell people that all the time. Look, there's certain things that I feel like you should give up. You should give up sometimes when you're just struggling through it, but you're not putting the work in. If you're putting the work in, you're trying your best. Don't give up. Keep trying it.
Oh
Keep
yeah.
going for it. But
No,
yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely a love hate.
I'm definitely putting the work in. I'm trying all sorts of different medium. I'm trying all sorts of things. So I'm doing that. But in your book as well, you talk about the maidenhair fern. Now, I don't want to bring my fern out here because it's embarrassing. I'm about to give up on that.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a. I would say I'm a. I'm a fan of the maidenhair fern.
So am I.
I've struggled in the past keeping it like aggressively healthy, but I've been over the years. I've been a bit more relaxed in how it grows and how some of the fronds will just die out or dry
Yeah,
out, and
yeah.
understanding better on how to care for it and seeing it continue to thrive over time.
Mm,
So I've been better at that, and I honestly, I'll say, I've been keeping. I think one of my maidenhair has been with me for the last 3 years, which I was
wow.
in the beginning. I was just like, these plants last for a day and then they're dead. But I think now I got a better sense of what they want when they want it. So I don't try. I try my best not to bring more than I need in, but
Yeah.
I do have a better handle on them now than I used to.
Let's talk about one of the things that I really admire about you. One of the things that I absolutely love about you, Hilton, is how you've taken design and decor and have made plants the center. And you make these beautiful spaces with that. I'm in awe of how you
Thank,
do that.
thank you.
I look at, I mean, I was looking through your book and I was just like, oh my God, oh my God. I want a house that looks like that. I want a house that, how do I get a house to look like that? So, anyway, in all that, I'm saying, how can someone try and have
Uh-huh.
a space that you make without the celebrity budgets of some of the people that you work with and just try and
Uh-huh.
make your space look nice and try and incorporate our plants into those spaces?
Of course. That's a great question. Thank you for all of the wonderful compliments. I really appreciate that. I mean, for me, it started out as a want to make sure that I felt extremely comfortable and at ease, and just found a amazing amount of joy just being in my space.
Mhm.
But I think for others, and the opportunity to replicate what I've done in my home or in other spaces out there is to always make sure at the end of the day, like it's always going to be based on light.
Mm,
So, regardless of what your budget might be, if you have the budget to bring in larger windows of sorts, then you can always then apply or work with different types of plants in a lot of light, right?
yep.
But let's just say you're going to manage with the light that you already have, getting a better sense of the types of plants that can thrive in that light and focusing on those almost like statement types of plants that can instantly change the way a room looks. I
Yep.
always start with that. And then I think about like what the decor is that is also in that particular space. Like, how does that make the full picture of the room feel comfortable?
Mm,
Right? I think in any space that I work in, it's all about making a environment where you feel like you are just surrounded by not just lush, but also just comfort.
yep.
So soft edges, whether that's couches, coffee tables, whether that's thinking about lighting, right? And how a warmer glow can make you feel a bit more relaxed than a
Mm,
cooler type of light. So these are all the things that I think budget wise, you can easily change the temperature of a bulb in your home. You can
sure.
easily change the softness of a space or like of a couch by adding different types of maybe throw pillows, maybe it's a throw blanket. But we're talking about plants, it's all going to stem from light. And then it's
Mm,
all at the end of the day, it's all going to be about thinking, not necessarily just about how a particular plant next to another plant works together as far as
mhm,
texture and color, size
mm,
as well, but also about the types of planters, how
Yes.
those planters work well in the space. And I think that's the thing that many people don't really think about or aren't really focused on. They might just toss a plant in a typical terracotta planter and just call it a day. But for me,
Yeah.
I try to focus on what the look of that planter is going to be and how it works design wise with everything else in the room.
I hear you say all those things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all going in the too hard basket. It's a lot to think about.
It is a
but
lot to
it's
think about.
but it's
I
great.
think
I think
well, you know what? A lot to think about is the thing that is necessary.
I did notice one thing though that was I thought was missing from your book. And to be fair, I should say I've only read your one book. That's I haven't read the others. I will, obviously, because I've read this one now. But and
Okay.
you talked about it just now, where if you've got the budget, you can increase the size of your windows. But most of us are not going to start breaking our walls to change our windows. So what is your take on adding grow lights into a living space and have those become part of the decor?
For sure. I think right now there are so many different wonderful, I would say, stylish grow lights out there. For me, I personally have grow lights in my home right now. Unlike you guys, we are still in winter here and you're lacking light. So I will provide grow lights in my home whenever possible. And again,
Yeah,
like I said, there are so many brands that are making them that can be seamlessly placed into a space. I believe that it is necessary, especially when you're talking about not having a lot of natural light coming in. Why
yeah.
not provide the plants that you want to have in your home with that artificial light so that they can thrive, but your space still feels good.
Yes. So we're not talking about the red, blue lights of a certain herb type manufacturing place.
No,
No. And
exactly. No,
it doesn't even have
not
to
that
be
at
a
all. We're talking
it,
about
it doesn't even have to be a specific lamp. You can just get a bulb these days and you can just put it into a lamp that you've already got or one
oh,
that
for sure.
works with your space and just put that in there.
Yep. Exactly. And I have so
So,
many of those just in my home. And
yeah,
it's one of the things that people don't think about. And I think it's probably because of all of the ugly, unappealing light fixtures that were offered years ago. I think
yeah,
right now we're in a perfect space. The trend has picked up enough where people now understand that it's better to design your space or have the ability to design your space with plants. You're going to need to have lighting that also fits the decor that you already have.
sure. One of the things that you particularly enjoy about taking care of plants is sharing your plants. And one of the ways that you do that is by propagating and giving the propagations as gifts to your friends and family. So now you've written a book about propagation, which I have to say is coming at the perfect time because I'm really wanting to deep dive into propagation. So tell us about your book. Where can we get your book and when is it available?
I love it. Thank you. It's called the Propagation Handbook. It'll be available April 9th worldwide. You can get it wherever books are sold. You
Yeah,
can get it from all of the book places. I don't know what the main book place for you there is, but I'm going to guess Amazon runs the world when it comes to that. So,
they
Amazon, if you
do.
have Amazon, if you have Barnes and Noble, all your local, hopefully your local plant shops. If there's a plant shop local to you that doesn't have it, they can always reach out and order the book from my publishers, of course. So, or Simon and Schuster will have the book if you know Simon and Schuster there. So
Yeah,
for me, like you mentioned, propagation was the thing that actually got me excited about plant care. I understood a bit more about the process of plants when I started propagating because you're taking like a
mm,
small piece, and you're then watching it develop roots. You see those roots develop. Then you then have to transition that plant into soil. You have to pay
yeah,
attention to that process. You then have to pay attention to how well you're watering it and how often you're watering it. And then you see it continue to grow and then mature. And that was the process that got me really excited and jazzed to share with other people. So when I did
yeah.
that, so when I did my first cutting, I was like, this is sorcery. This is
You were like,
magic. How can
I
I
made
share what I'm feeling? Like I felt so good about myself. I felt like I was like, this is achievement. Like you're seeing success happen as new leaves are unfurling and growing. You're like, I
yeah,
did this thing. And I wanted
Yeah.
people to feel that as well. So I started to share like, hey, here's a cutting of my plant, or here's how to propagate. And I've
Yeah.
been wanting to make this book for a while. And it just so happened that there were another few that just came up, whether it was like during the pandemic or something that I was just like, oh, I have the opportunity to do this now. Let me make a book about this. But I told my publishers when I have time, I would love to make this book called the Propagation Handbook, something that people can take with them. That was the thing. I've made
Yeah.
books that kind of felt like they were on the edge of like a coffee table book, like something that
Yeah.
you can put out on your table and just never really crack into it. Don't get the cover dirty. Don't bend up any pages. I want it to be dirty. I want this new book to feel like or be treated in the same vein, the same type of way people treat cookbooks.
Cookbooks.
You know, you'll get a little soup or a little sauce on your cookbook. I want the Propagation Handbook to be treated like that. I want to see dirt. I want to see waterlogged areas of the book because people are putting it to use. That's what this book is about. That's kind of why I call it the handbook, because I want it to be used all the time to help people develop cutting. So we talk about everything in there, the process of all different methods of propagation, whether it's stem, tip, division and separation, whether you're doing air layering, whether you're someone who has very great, go for it.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have seen the book. I have had a read of it, and it's absolutely fantastic. I actually
Uh-huh.
really loved it. It's got some really, really great tips, and I love how you start with tools. You know exactly what you need to actually get this going, and it's really quite step by step. If you've never propagated anything before, this book will get you going. But I'm just gonna have to throw it out there, Hilton, because I am the Leca queen. This is what I do, and I do have to say, you did not address the issue of propagating in Leca. Just gonna say that.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
I mean, if I
I
don't bring
knew
it up,
that.
who's gonna?
That's true. That's true. That was the thing that I felt that at some point that would get brought up. It's just not something that like we talked about, we mentioned the things that we use
Do
a lot or we share about the things
exactly.
that we do. And that's not the thing that I typically do, that I propagated how my propagations typically go. But
Yeah.
I've been working my way there. So that you should know.
Don't, because that's my book.
Got you. I
Don't
got
take
you.
my book, Hilton. Yours will sell better.
Hey, you're the queen. You're the queen of it. I'll let you have it.
But yeah, no, I was really. I think your book is gonna. I think it's gonna do really, really well. I think it's something that was needed in that space. And I think the other thing I really loved about it was it's just so easy to understand. It's as I was reading it, I could hear you talking to me. And
Oh, I
that's one
love
of the
that. I
things.
love that.
Yeah, no, I mean, even when I was reading this Living Wild, I love how when you read a book, you can actually sense the person who wrote it. And because I read a lot, I do a lot of reading. I'm a very voracious reader. I could hear you. That
I
connection
love it.
in your books is definitely there. So I think that Propagation Handbook will do really well.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Let's talk about something fun.
Okay, I thought we were talking about things that were fun.
This is sometimes, plant stuff can get a bit heavy. If you were stuck on a desert island, what 5 plants would you bring with you? Five, just five.
Hold on, I'm stuck on a desert island and I have to bring five
I
plants.
know.
Am I bringing them to the island to get stuck, or
No,
I'm taking
oh,
them
come on. You're
somewhere?
an overthink. Look, okay, I see you're an overthinker like me because when I was trying to come up with this question, I thought to myself, it can't be a lush island because there'll be plants there already. So,
Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
so we're just running with the analogy of a desert island.
got it, got it. Desert island. It's just a lump of sand and no greenery. Okay, let's start
There's
there. If I
no
could bring,
greenery, but
I'm
there's good soil, and you are bringing the greenery.
got it. Well, I'm gonna always start with the fiddle leaf fig because it was the one that got me into the space and challenged
Yeah.
me enough to keep me going. What else? Fiddle
What?
leaf fig to start. I'm gonna go with the staghorn fern.
Oh.
Love staghorn fern. I'm gonna probably go right now. I'm a huge fan of the Shiverina, the ficus.
Oh yeah. That's so pretty.
Yes, big, such a pretty plant. What else am I a fan of? Oh, you want to talk about just a plant that can get you, that can keep you green. It can keep your space green and is very low on a low maintenance side, but also I've always been known as a moodier type of individual, like artist wise. I'm gonna
Yep.
go with the Raven ZZ. It can add a bit of mood and it's not gonna
Oh,
require so much. You got one.
oh,
You got one. There we go.
oh.
Look at us. See? You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Like that's
No,
yeah, yeah.
I got you, Hilton.
Well, you know what? And I'm not. It's not one that I would say I'm going to take on the desert island with me. But that orbifolia that you're having behind you, I feel like for me, like that's one of the prettiest plants one can have
Ever.
in their collection. It can be a bit challenging for me, but it's such a pretty plant.
Yeah. I don't think you can go past. I don't think there's a plant that's prettier than this plant. It's the best. It truly is. And I am
It
so
is a really
lucky because this plant, I've cracked it. For me, this particular plant, my plant it's you can't see, it's huge like this.
I
And it's
love
growing
that.
in a
Wow.
30 centimeter pot and it's growing in Leca clay balls.
Okay. I
Yep.
love that. I
Yeah.
know you. I got. You know what? I gotta get on that train. I'm not gonna take your thing. I'm not. I'm not gonna become the king of like. I'm not gonna become the king. All I'm saying is, I want to. I want to jump on your train and learn a bit about what you are doing to see if I'm missing something. Because look, I tell people this all the time. I'm not big enough or brave enough or smart enough to know every single thing,
No one
right? So
is.
I'm always learning and I'm so to always learn more, always available to learn more. So if you're like, hey, you need to do more of this here and you'll see the results, sign me up. Sign me up. I'm all on board for that.
Look, all the plants you see here, everything I've shown you, they're all growing in Leca clay balls. I do not have a single plant in soil in my home, and I have over 300.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna try it out. I'm gonna try it
Yep.
out, and then I'm gonna do a side by side comparison.
You can do a yeah. Someone actually
I'm gonna,
asked me to do that the other day. They said, "Can you get a plant, put it in soil, put it in leca, and do a comparison?" And you know what I said? I said this the weirdest thing. I said, "Well,
what'd
that's
you
a great
say?
idea, but I can't do that because I'm strictly a soil-free zone. So we'd have to get someone else to do that." I mean,
Leave it to me. I'll do
it's
it. I
not
got
on
you. I
brand.
got you.
I have to stick to the brand. I mean, what if I find that
I
the
hear you.
soil
I
plant
hear
works
you.
better for that one experiment? What am I going to say?
It's true. You know what? You're right. Don't do it. You're like, oh my god, I've been doing this wrong the entire time. Oh no.
It will completely decimate me. But in all seriousness, I think you should. I mean, there's lots of benefits, and some plants do really,
Yeah.
really well. I mean, in fact, I think all plants do well in a semi-hydro type setup. It just depends on how you manage the things and how you're doing. Even like all my ZZs, literally all my ZZs are living in a reservoir, if you can believe it. There's water in there.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's yeah, there's
I kind of believe it. I kind of believe it.
I mean, that's what I've. This is my raven here. See, those are the clay balls,
Yep.
and that's the reservoir. See,
Yep.
and those are the roots.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, I know.
All right.
Yeah,
You made me a
there's a.
believer. You made me a believer.
Oh yeah, I mean, I even have. That's a fern right
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah. So it's
Wow.
possible.
All
There's
right.
all sorts of things, but we're still. You gave me four.
I
Um,
know it's I know it's possible. I wasn't questioning what you were doing. I'm just saying, like, I just need to try it out. I need to see how it
yeah,
works for
no,
me.
but I wanted you to see because sometimes you need to see.
For sure.
Yeah,
I get
but
that.
plant number 5. We don't have plant number 5 yet.
Plant number 5. What would I do? What would I take? What would I bring with me? I'm looking around. That's a good question. Plant number 5. What is the plant right now that I'm just like can't get enough of? What is the one that I can't get enough of? You know what? I'm a philodendron type of guy. There's so many. I have so many phils in my life that I am loving. Always been loving. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the elbow. The Monstera elbow
Oh yeah.
is one. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my love for a good palm. Talking about an island, you gotta have a good palm on an
You,
island.
you,
You know what
you
I mean?
gotta
Like
have a
this whole.
palm.
It's, I'm gonna leave the fifth one up for just the ability to make the decision on the day.
Yeah, yeah,
On the day
yeah,
where I find out I'm be stuck on this island, I'm just gonna bring the one that makes me feel the best that I know for a very long time. I'm stuck there.
yeah.
That would make me feel the best. You know what? Maybe something that would bring me a lot of shade. Honestly, if I'm stuck
Mm,
on this island that doesn't have much greenery, right?
yep.
So maybe the thing that would grow the largest that would provide enough shade. So I'm gonna leave that as just up in the air for now.
Is there anything else that you would like to add, Hilton, before I know you have to toot along?
I mean, I don't. I mean, there's not much. I think you know what I will say. It would be wrong if I didn't mention it. I also agreed to do this because you look like me. There's not there when I first started talking about plants and sharing about plants, there weren't a lot of faces that looked like mine that were out there to give feedback or critique or
Yep.
criticism, I guess, of what I was doing. It felt like there weren't a lot of us in the space. And whenever I see someone who looks like me in this space, I want to celebrate with them that we are everywhere and we are growing and thriving and raising other generations to feel comfortable sharing about something as it could be dull, it could be exciting. Whatever your feelings are, for me, it's always exciting and sharing that with so many others. And yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. And I wanted to thank you for having me. And I want to thank you for being a part of this community, being a bright source of wisdom to individuals wherever you are or wherever your reach is, which is worldwide, right? Because we're talking about the internet. You can reach
Yep.
people in the farthest corners of the world.
The
And
world.
for someone like myself who lives in Baltimore, Maryland, be able to have a conversation with someone who lives as far as we can go to
I
talk
know.
about this thing, to talk about plants and how they make us feel, and for us to be on the same page is just, as you say, brilliant. And I'm really thankful that I was here today.
It is absolutely brilliant. And that is just that. I mean, I can't top that.
Well, there's no reason to try to top it. I just think it needs to be said.
I can't speak to any of that. It was brilliant. It was
Thank you.
absolutely brilliant. And I thank you so much, Hilton, for taking the time out to have a chat with me, have a chat with everyone. And guys out there listening to this, if you haven't patched on to Hilton, you must, you must, you must. He is a fountain of knowledge for all things plants, all things beauty, and all things design. So I'll have a link to in the description to all his pages and stuff, and all his books as well, because you want to have a read of that, and that's just going to be brilliant.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hilton. I will see you soon because this is
Yes,
the beginning.
I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm gonna make it my duty to be in Australia this year. I think that's you talking about wish list of plants. That Australia is my wish list destination
Yeah,
for
yeah.
2024. Place I want to visit, whether it's Melbourne. Well, is Sydney on the other side? I can't recall.
Sydney is about
Um,
eight, well, flying about an hour or so. So it's not too far. So I don't care about Sydney, but you must come to Melbourne.
you got it. You
All the
got it.
cool people are in Melbourne.
That's what I've been hearing. That's what I've been hearing. So I look
And all
forward
the
to
cool
it.
plants are in Melbourne. So you must come to Melbourne.
You got it. I appreciate it.